given a lot of time to that. In fact, the reports and all. Anyway, this is the last lab before your cat. So after only your cat is over, we'll continue with this experiment formally. Uh, yeah. Yes. So let me just directly go and show you the relevant document that we have. So this is the document that I've uploaded. I guess everyone will be having one document of this. So as you can observe, that this is the multipath fading in cellular mobile communication. This is what we are going to test as such. This is a brand new experiment that we are going to do. This was not there anyway in the previous version of WMC, especially given the fact that we cannot go ahead in doing it in NetSim. We were prompted to use the MATLAB functionalities to perform such experiment. And in a way, it's a pretty good experiment, because here we are going to learn a few concepts which might not have been possible during the normal class hours. So this is a time I would take in establishing those facts which might be relevant for the lab purpose, especially. So in that aspect, and also you can observe the last day only when we started off our multipath fading in cellular network in the second module, we had already started with the reflection, diffraction, and scattering. So all these parameters and terms are pretty much known to you now. Uh, so I won't take that much time to go through it, because these are all pretty much known to you. The main experiment that we are going to do here is to model, okay, here in this case we will assume in a way that we will assume a model, a wireless scenario or a multipath scenario in terms of two specific fading distribution. Okay, one we call that as the Rayleigh fading distribution, and the other one is the Riccian fading distribution. Now these are the two most used multipath scenarios for any given system, wireless system. The very reason, if you just, if I colloquially tell you, it's basically when we are taking the normal convention, we usually take AWGN as the channel between the transmitter and the receiver. But the main issue with that is that if I open this file to you, so the conventional technique that most of you might be familiar with is that we have a transmitter and we have a receiver over here, okay, and we are taking an AWGN in between, something like this. Now the problem with this is that ideally we are taking into account only the line of sight component as well as the fixed communication line established between transmitter and receiver. So ideally the multi-path or the non-line of sight components, which forms the basis of any wireless scenario, is completely eliminated when we take the AWGN assumption. So our calculation becomes much easier when we take into account AWGN. But that is not the ideal way to go. We have to take into account both the Rayleigh fading as well as something called as Riccian fading distribution, and both of these distribution plays an important role in modeling a wireless channel. You remember last day when in the class I told you that all this calculation is dealt with some kind of a modeling, some kind of a prediction, that based on some statistics that we can gather from the channel, we will kind of predict that what will be the extent of deterioration that will happen to the end signal. So in this particular experiment also, what we can observe that in here we will feed in the inputs, maybe the different parameters that I said, and in that way we will try to mimic a scenario that what will happen to the transmitted signal in terms of its attenuation in the amplitude or maybe the fluctuation in the amplitude. So that is primarily what we are going to look into. But the thing is, even if I happens to tell you just like that in manual whatever is given to you, and you will just kind of mug up and will go and execute it. But I think you should know some of these concepts which might be, I would agree that it might be little tough to understand at this point. That's why I will focus more slowly on those aspects, and irrespective of what is given over here, okay, in the PDF, and then we will come back maybe in this PDF, and maybe we can see to it that how it is given in the PDF, because nothing, we cannot really go on giving all the details in a lab manual, so we cannot do that. So here I have given the snippet of everything. For example, the equation that we are looking at over here, this all will be taught again back in your theory at some point of time, but I think this is the time when I'll show you again over here how we can derive it, because those derivations and all might not be relevant for your theory, but it might be relevant for your practical assumptions or practical program. So we'll go one by one and discussing what are the elements, and then we'll come back to all this discussion whatever is given. Even if time permits, we'll go through the algorithms, how they are being defined, and also, as just like the previous time, we will give the sample code, and finally we will get some kind of an output of this nature. But we'll see everything, all of this we'll observe only after we know the basic theory. So let us just know the basic theory, because you people are completely unaware of that part. So let me just brief on that first, and then maybe I'll show you the PDF and the whatever is mentioned over there. So please follow these things what I'm about to write. Okay, if possible, you can make a note of it as well, because this might be even in theory I might skip it there. So because of the time constraint that I have here, I don't have it, so I can tell you slowly, but you can understand. So what we are discussing over here is the multi-path scenario. Let us revisit the multi-path scenario. If you have any doubt any time, please tell me. Okay, uh, then we can discuss it there itself. So what it does mean is, suppose there are L possible multipaths. Okay, suppose there are L possible multipaths. So 0, 1, 2, like that. Suppose L multipaths are present. That can be any multipath. It can be from different scatterers, it can be from different reflectors, whatever you call it, but there are L paths. So between transmitter and receiver, if this diagram goes, so this can be 1, this can be second path, or this can be the 0th path, this can be the first path, then maybe this one is another path, so 2, like that. There are L number of paths. Now all this path, whatever it is coming, there are two factors that define the multipath scenario. That is two things that we need to take into consideration. The two factors that we actually have to bother with is, one is called the amplitude factor, and the other one is the time delay. So this A naught or AI in general, if I write it, this is amplitude factor. Okay, and the tau I is the delay factor, because you can observe that ideally these are the two, along with, in fact there will be another one which is the phase factor will also come in. These are the three factors, to be honest, which governs the multipath. That obviously when there are multipath, the signal amplitude will deteriorate. Either it will increase, improve, or like it will shoot up to some abnormal value, or it will come down to an abnormally low value. So that is an amplitude. The delay will definitely happen because of multiple paths that the signal travel in order to reach the receiver. And phase is also some issue that will also be discussed later as well. The phase will also have, like, there will be overlapping of the same path once again and again, so that will result into some kind of a phase distortion. So that we are not taking at this point of time. So suppose A0 T tau 0, these are the amplitude, and tau is the delay of the 0th path. Okay. Similarly, for the 1th path, it will be A1, maybe tau 1. This might be A2, tau 2, and like that it goes to AL, tau L. Okay. Now, if you are all familiar with the LTI system, the normal conventional LTI system in control system and all, you must all agree that this can be represented. This whole thing can be represented in terms of something like A0 impulse response of t minus tau 0, because at that tau 0 instant only the signal exists. So that can be an impulse response or impulse response based representation of the zeroth part. Please follow carefully what I am trying to do. Similarly, this can be represented as A1 sigma t minus tau 1, A2 sigma t minus tau 2. This comes from the impulse response concept. So this is AL sigma t minus tau n. So this is a representation, nothing more than that. So we are representing it with an amplitude and the delay part over here. And this, if I call it by a name, sometimes this is referred to as something like h of 0, this can be h of 1, this can be h of 2, this can be h of l. Where this h, l which you are looking at, if I write it in general, so h of I, which is a function of the delay, is ai sigma t minus tau I. This is usually called as the impulse response of the path. Impulse response of the path. Each path, that is for if L paths are there, each path can be modeled as something like this. That is what the idea is. Now let's see if we can go on a bit deep with this, because this plays the most important aspect of our calculation, because all this hi, if I consider, if I take it as a generic way, if I consider all in general, then the multipath channel response can be denoted as multipath. This is individual channel response. So multipath channel response, okay, this is given by summation I equal to 0 L minus 1 ai sigma t minus tau L. So if I give it a generic one, this is represented as h of tau. Okay. So this is what we call as the multipath channel response, or a general multipath channel response, how it is looked, or sometimes they are called as tapped delay line. Please make a note of this, tapped delay line. This is a term that will be used later. So this is basically indicating that what are the elements of amplitude and the delay associated with each and every point or each and every multipath that has happened for a particular scenario. So this is the multipath channel response that can be represented with. Now in the same way, if you people are aware of, since most of you have done the DCS, or if you have not done DCS also, you must be aware of that a y of t, if the received signal is considered to be y of t, this will be nothing but something like s of t, that is the transmitted signal, or if I consider that to be convolution of that multiplied by convolution to the channel response, or h of t. Okay. Now this again I'm not going much into detail, because again this is supposed to be known by you can just refer it to later. So this is where we have to substitute the transmitted part, and this is where the channel response comes in. Okay, this gives us some kind of an output which is over here. Now let us just try to figure out how it is been given. So ST, okay, this ST, if I consider with a different color, ST, this can be represented in terms of the real component as, okay, only the real component as SBT e to the power j 2 pi FCT. Okay. Now this is again from the convention of it, that this is only the real part that we are talking about. Okay, so it will have a complex envelope also, but usually we'll only stick it to the real part of it. So this is the baseband signal. These terms might be a bit weird at times for you people, but don't worry, we'll solve it at some time later. And this is the portion that we are looking at, the carrier frequency. So this FC is basically the carrier frequency that we are looking at. So if this is ST, and if something as this is already given as h of tau or h of t in general, so y of t, okay, y of, or rather I would say passband, y of t is, this passband also has a role to play in fact. So this will be summation of I equal to 0 to L minus 1 real component of AI S B T minus tau I e to the power j 2 pi fc t minus tau I. Just see what I did. I just happens to this was tau L over here. Okay. So what I did, the first element was, suppose the first zeroth path will be a0 sb t minus tau 0 multiplied by e to the power j 2 pi fc t minus tau 0. So like that it will be, because this is a summation. So for each individual path if you take, so that is a0, suppose the zeroth path you are calculating. So a0 sb t minus tau 0 e to the power j 2 pi fc t minus tau 0. So this should have been tau 0 if we have taken only a single path. But since there are L paths, the genetic equation is looking something like this. Okay, and further if I go on modifying this with some steps, if I remove some of the steps, the final outcome that it comes is something like this. Real component is still there, I equal to 0 L minus 1 AI, okay, SB, that is the baseband t minus tau I e to the power minus j 2 pi fc tau I. This I will keep it in a bracket, okay, and e to the power j 2 pi fc t means something we are taking it out. It's simple. In fact, we are just calculating over here and we are taking this out. Why? Because this happens to be the carrier part. Again, you can see that we have eliminated the carrier over here. So carrier, if you remember that in most of our modulation, the way the modulation happens usually, that there will be a message signal and there will be a carrier signal that will encapsulate the message signal. So basically this one, this whole thing that you're looking at, including the, in fact, the real component, this is called as complex baseband signal. Okay. As I said, this all will not be relevant for your course. It won't be needed at any point of time, but you need to know this as a wireless communication engineer, and especially going forward with the experiment, you might need it at some point of time. So if this is the complex baseband that we are talking about, okay, so we might write it this baseband. Why we are making sure that this all this we are writing over here like this is that we can approximate this complex baseband as a narrow band assumption. Okay, we can now relate to it to a narrow band assumption. So instead of YPT, we would write YT. Narrow band assumption is nothing but the convention, that is the modulating frequency is sufficiently less than the carrier frequency. Okay, so if I just happens to write over here for people who don't remember it. So narrow band assumption is Fm is sufficiently less than Fc. So for people who have already done it, who already know that for modulation, the carrier frequency should be sufficiently high than Fm. Okay. So if this is the case, then only we can take a narrowband assumption. So here also we are taking a narrowband assumption that the carrier frequency is sufficiently greater than that of this won't be Fc. So the narrowband, the frequency, the carrier frequency is greater than the modulating frequency, and if that is the case, then Yt can be represented as I equal to 0 to L minus 1 AI SB T minus tau I e to the power minus j 2 pi fc tau I. So this is a narrow band assumption. Remember, this was the pass band assumption, the one that I'm marking now. Okay, pass band assumption of the output received signal. But this is the narrow band assumption that we are talking about. So this is the whole overall thing. And if it is a narrow band signal, if we can, I can write this sentence. If it is a narrow band assumption, if a narrow band assumption is made, then what we can do, we can simply write that S of t minus tau I, this is approximately S, or rather if I consider it SB, this will be nothing but SB of t. So this is the biggest advantage of having a narrowband assumption, that the multipath or the path delay associated with the signal can be readily eliminated from the, or ignored rather, from the expression. So if this is the case, then our y of t is represented as summation I equal to 0 L minus 1 ai e to the power minus j 2 pi fc tau I multiplied by s of bt. See, this whole thing, sbt minus tau I, is now replaced by sbt only, and the rest of the things I have kept a bracket. This is where our experiment starts. Okay, so this part, if you can observe that output, the received signal, that is dependent on the transmitted signal and a complex envelope looking at over here. So this is a complex coefficient. This is a complex coefficient of channel. Because why it is a complex coefficient of channel? Because you have the amplitude which comes from the AI, which is a multipath signal, multipath channel, that is multipath signals that is happening for the scenario, as well as the time delay that is associated with it. That how much is the delay that the each and every multipath component is facing. So that is why this complex coefficient, okay, this can be even written as a e to the power j phi as the complex coefficient, channel complex coefficient. Okay, so this is this part, only this summation part. So this multiplied by the transmitted signal will give us out. Now we shift our attention. Okay, now we shift our attention to let me just take you just to intuitively physically understand this. I'll just give you this example so that you can understand. Let's see if this is replaced by h, suppose this I is replaced by h, so my equation becomes y of t. See this very carefully, h multiplied by s of t. Okay, now this is the most simplistic way of writing it. Now suppose we take an example, we take an example that L, that is number of path, is 2. Suppose there are 2 multipath component present. So what will be h? So h will be nothing but I equal to 0 to 1, okay, because L minus 1 ai e to the power minus j 2 pi fc t. This one, I'm writing this one once again. So this will be, if I take the summation out, so amplitude is 1. Suppose the amplitudes in both the cases, a0 and a1 is 1. So 1 into e to the power minus j 2 pi fc multiplied by 0, because this is a 0th instance, plus 1 into e to the power minus j 2 pi fc into 1. Okay, now suppose at this case tau I, suppose at this, so this is tau, I would say tau I, tau 1 rather. Okay, you understood what I did? L equals to 2 means I'm just taking what is this h value, just to make you understand. So what I did here, you can observe that this should also be tau 0, to be honest, tau 0. Now let us assume that with L equal to 2, and also we have assumed that a0 equals to a1, that is the amplitude is 1. We also assume that the tau 0, that is the first delay associated with the first path, is 0, and tau 1 is 1 by 2 pi. So 1 by 2 fc, sorry, 1 by 2 fc. Suppose these are the two things, we are just assuming it, nothing else. So what may happen is that if I do it, so again e to the power minus j 2 pi fc multiplied by tau 0 is 0, so 0, plus 1, again the amplitude of a1 comes in, e to the power minus j 2 pi fc multiplied by 1 by 2 fc. So what has happened, fc gets cancelled, so overall calculation will lead over here is 0, because the overall, this will lead to the power minus j pi, and all those things will give you minus 1, this is plus 1, so plus 1 minus 1 is 0. So for L equal to 2, understand the consequence. If L equals to 2, if the two amplitudes are unity, in this case is 1 1, so depending on the delay, the contribution of the channel is basically 0. That is it is attenuating everything. So now if you check, if I do this yt equal to h multiplied by st, so whatever you transmit, because h is 0, so it is basically 0 multiplied by st, so basically your output is 0. So the idea is, the bottom line is that based on what this complex coefficient or the complex channel characterization is, your output will vary. Okay, and as the output will vary, or if I need some kind of a predefined output at the end, so we have to somehow model this one. Okay, because st is already with us, st is what we are transmitting, we are generating, so that is with already us, so that's constant as such. The only variability or the randomness, as I said in the last day, the randomness in the overall transmission is with respect to this channel coefficient h. So we need some kind of a model, we need some kind of a mathematical distribution to get hold of this h, so that we can predict the nature of how this yt will be. Am I clear with this part, at least what my intentions are, why I'm trying to do this? Even if you are not able to follow each and every step, you can later tell me, but the idea is what I'm trying to convey is basically this part. Okay, this is what is important, that the output of a wireless channel or wireless signal is heavily dependent not only on the transmitted signal, but it is primarily more concerned with how the channel is behaving. And in that channel, we have the amplitude variation and we have the delay. These are the two factors that we are taking into consideration. And also I have observed, given this small little example I told you, that given this fact, we can find out that if this h is 0, whatever you feed in s as a transmitter, it will eventually give you an attenuated value of 0. In the same manner, you can take different values of tau 0, tau 1. For example, you take tau 1 as 1 by fc. Suppose the delay is considered 1 by fc. You will find that when you calculate the yt, this h value will come as 2. Okay, what I'm saying is that if you consider this scenario, a0 equal to a1 equals to 1, and tau 0 equals to 0, and tau 1 equal to 1 by fc, instead of 2 fc, now it's 1 by fc. You will find that if you go on calculating in the same manner, your h will come as 2. So in that case, your y of t is nothing but 2 into st, which is basically an amplification or an enhanced signal. So you can observe that based on the h, whether it is absent or present, the output signal is getting varied. That is where we come in, as we need to find out that what will be the distribution or the model that we need to follow. So let us take it from here for the next phase of our discussion.